And for today's art class, we're going to need some watercolour paints. You can use pen ones similar to these, or you can use liquid. It doesn't really matter. We're going to need a piece of watercolour paper taped to a backing board. This isn't a necessity, but it makes it a little bit easier. We're going to need a lead pencil and an eraser, a couple of paintbrushes, and we're going to need a couple of white pens. Now this is a white Posca pen. I've used it in previous videos. And this one is I always hold it up the wrong way, is a Sigma Uniball Broad White Gel Pen. This one is fantastic. I love using this one. And these are pretty good too. So this one is basically an acrylic paint, but it's in pen form. If you don't have either of these, when the time comes for when we use these, you can actually just use a very thin paintbrush with a little bit of white acrylic paints. You're also going to need a couple of different size paintbrushes, or you can just use one. It's totally up to you. It doesn't really matter. You use what you have at home. Don't let your art supplies stop you from creating. And of course we need a jar of fresh water. Okay, let's get started. Okay, today's art class is going to be a pretty quick one. I actually created a video yesterday, and as I was creating that video with the patterned rocks, the 9 patterned rocks in that grid, I came up with a couple of ideas that I thought I would love to do. So this is the first one. I'm going to actually make 2 videos today. As you saw yesterday, or in yesterday's video, which is probably not yesterday to you, but I created that, the rocks, the organic round shapes with the patterns on them. And I discussed how fascinated that I am with how those people balance rocks upon rocks. So I thought today would be a cool idea to actually create just a little painting along the same style of yesterday, but use the balancing rocks. Now, it's up to you how you do this. You can just make it up as you go. You can look at some images online and just type in balancing rocks, and you'll see lots of images come up. I am just going to not start right down the bottom because I want my image to be from about here to here. So I will rub that out once I've finished. So basically all I'm going to do is make some organic style shaped rocks, and I'm not going to I'm just going to make them go smaller as I go, and just keep working at it until I've created some shapes that I'm happy with. So I might not go all the way up to the top. It looks like I'm starting out at pretty small. You just need to make sure that the shapes are touching at one point, and that's all you need to do. And of course it doesn't really matter if in real life these rocks would not balance, because this is not real life. You can do whatever you like on this. And I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to leave it at that. Hopefully you can see that. I think you can. So I'm just going to erase some of these darker lines to lighten them up so you can't see too much when I actually paint over in watercolor. So as I did in a previous video, I'm going to use just use brown tones, and I'm using different watercolors today. I'm using cheaper watercolors to show you that it doesn't matter what you use, how much you spend on your art supplies. It is always possible, as long as you've got any set of watercolors and any paintbrush, it is always possible to create art. So I'm not going to show you this in slow mo, you know, at real time. I'm going to actually speed it up. Okay, now what I'm going to do is let those dry, and then I'm going to paint the ones in between that, because you don't want the colours from one melting or bleeding into the other. So I'll let that dry and then come back. Okay, so that is dried. Now I'm going to paint the rocks in between. I'm just going to slightly pre-wet the rocks there. I mean, some of that might bleed in. I'm hoping not. Now, where I've seen that there is going to be created, a shadow created, I've just added a little bit of darker colour to that, the same colour that the rock was painted in. So I'm just going to quickly paint this, and I'm going to actually use a different brown. I'm using a different set of paints because that first set of paints didn't actually have much of a variety of the browns. So I mostly used greys in that last one. Grey and a bit of olive, and this one is actually a brownish colour. So I just want to create those nice, lovely, organic, rounded shapes. I just say organic because it's not perfect. The shapes aren't perfect and they're nice and rounded. It's nature. To me, organic means nature. Might mean something different to you, but when I do my paintings, that's what I mean. So what I'm going to do is just pat some of that out to give it a little bit of texture. And then without adding water, I'm just going to go across the part at the top where I need to darken it to create that shadow from the rock above. That's pretty much all I'm doing. You don't have to do that step if you don't want to. And that's how I'm leaving that one. And I'm just going to paint the rest of them. There's only 3 more to paint, and when I've done that, I will come back. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just add a little bit of darkness to the bottom there, where I think there's going to be shadow from the stone above, or from the rock above. And I just do it in the same colour that I've actually painted in. I need to add a little bit more to that one, I think. And then a little bit of grey to that top one, I think. Just up here. I hope you can see that. And then almost done. I'm actually going to add just a little bit of grey, really washed out grey, to the bottom to create kind of like a shadow where it sits. That's not quite dark enough. Hopefully this one works. Now that's a little bit too dark. I'll just water that down a bit. And there we have it. Now I'm going to take my phone off this and show you close up all the different textures on the rocks. Now I was going to add pattern to that, but do you want to know something? I really like how that is. So I am not going to add pattern to it. However, you can do whatever your heart desires. So you might like to add pattern to it. I'm just going to get the one that I did in my previous video. Now see how I've added pattern to that? Oops, that's upside down. There we go. See how I've added pattern to that? Now you can do that. I am going to do no pattern on this one because I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I love all the textures, all the different textures on that. I'm actually going to frame that, I think, once it's dried. I'm really, really happy with that. I love natural looking pieces. So there we have it. It's finished. Or if you choose to do the white patterns over the top, that's why I said it might be a good idea to have these or some white acrylic paints as a material list. But I'm going to leave it like that. So if you have liked what you've seen, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Free Art Class by Bit of a Hippie. I also have a Facebook group called Free Art Class, which you are most welcome to join. There you can get the updated downloads of my YouTube videos. You can also actually upload any artwork that you've created from watching and doing one of my videos. So thanks for watching and taking the time, and I will see you next time. Bye.